everybody, Diana here for Fabulous Fridays, and today's date is Friday, May 7th, and this week our special is on compulsive overeating and binge eating disorder, and my topic today is all about comorbidity. So first off, I'm going to tell you guys the definition of comorbidity, and there's a few that I found. It's pretty much the presence of one or more disorders or diseases in addition to a primary disease or disorder. And another definition I found is the effect of such additional disorders or diseases. And comorbidity is also related to the definition of dual diagnosis, and it's often applied to comorbid existence of both mental disorders and developmental disabilities. And in medicine, comorbidity describes the effect of all other diseases individual patients might have than the primary disease or interest. So I'm going to have a few examples here, and first I'm going to talk about depression and eating disorders and how those two kind of relate. Depression is, as we know, often seen to be accompanying a diagnosis of an eating disorder, and usually a high percentage of depressive disordered patients have eating disorders, and the depressive symptoms usually decrease after treatment of the eating disorder. So people with depression often either get it before their eating disorder or they get it during their eating disorder, kind of as a symptom. I know that I had depression before I had my anorexia, and the depression kind of led me into anorexia. Depression happened first, and as that progressed, it kind of triggered me into the eating disorder. And people suffering with symptoms of anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorders have significant sadness and depression. Their lives feel out of control, and they are chronically unhappy with their weight and bodies. And their self-esteem suffers, and they may feel like they're unsuccessful and ugly. Going along with that is a sense of loneliness and isolation, and that can also contribute to your feelings of sadness. And then another thing that kind of goes along with eating disorders is insomnia, and it's a common side effect of malnutrition, like we all know. And it may also be a factor of developing depression. Like, I know right now, and ever since I've had my eating disorder, I've had insomnia. And mine, I think, mainly is just because, when I try and go to bed at night, I can't, because I'm always, thinking. I'm always thinking about what I'm going to do the next day and how I'm going to deal with a certain situation the next day. So yeah. That example I just told you guys is pretty much me in a nutshell. There's also a link between bipolar and people with eating disorders, and the comorbidity of binge eating disorder and bipolar disorder. There's a really big link, and the link is consistent with night binging syndrome between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. And this behavior was thought to be significant in the bipolar population, just because usually when you're bipolar, you have your mood swings in the early morning hours, and are also, I know when I'm in the early morning hours and I'm awake from my insomnia, I do get a lot of mood swings, and sometimes I have been known to binge at night, just because I'm feeling awful, or I don't know. This one was also kind of linked to me. And then eating also plays an important role in our social interactions. and it can be used to alter emotional states and even to influence our brain function. And serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter, plays a really important role in the regulation of the circadian rhythm, which is pretty much like a circadian rhythm is kind of like your internal clock. It tells you when you're tired, when you should be awake, when you should eat, when you should sleep. And a dysfunction of this system has been found to cause like a wide array of different disorders. A few examples are depression, anxiety, sleep-wake cycle disorders, obsessive-compulsive disorder, panic disorder, phobias, anorexia, bulimia, and seasonal affective disorder, along with binge eating disorder and compulsive overeating. There is a big link between obsessive-compulsive disorder and eating disorders as well. And the obsessional personality trait and symptoms have been reported in between 3 and 83% of eating disorder cases. And I found a statistic saying that 30% of anorexia nervosa patients have been reported to have significant obsessional personality features. And there are similarities between obsessional personality and dieting disorders. And these have led to this has led researchers to notice that obsessional personality traits might predate the onset of eating disorders. So if someone has an obsessive compulsive disorder, that can often, and not all the time, but it has been found to lead to eating disorders, along with people with eating disorders have obsessive compulsive disorder a lot of the time. Another link between two disorders is self-mutilation and eating disorders. And doctors have been treating OCD and eating disorders have been aware that self-mutilation is a problem among their patients. And when a doctor is treating someone with an eating disorder, it's just a good thing to keep an eye out for OCD and self-mutilation just because they are so widely linked. Another example of different things that kind of go with eating disorders, different diseases, can be things like people with anorexia and bulimia and binge eaters develop addictions to gambling, shoplifting, alcohol, and drugs. And research suggests that 30 to 50% of individuals with eating disorders use alcohol or drugs, compared to only 9% of the general population. And up to 35% of alcohol and illicit drug abusers have eating disorders, compared to only 3% in the general population. So, alcohol and drugs they are pretty common to go with eating disorders. Another few things are the addiction to caffeine, laxatives, and diuretics. They're also drugs of choice with people with eating disorders, along with barbiturates, tranquilizers, cocaine, and heroin. And these drugs are often initially used to suppress the appetite or increase your metabolism, sometimes to purge calories, and sometimes to self-medicate against negative emotions. But they usually do quickly turn into physical addictions. Yeah, that's all I have for you guys this week, and I hope this helped just to kind of clear up what comorbidity is and how it affects people with eating disorders. So have a nice week. Bye, guys.